Good evening, everyone. Welcome to closing comments here on December 3rd. Let's jump right into our charts and see what happened in the markets today. First up, February live cattle on the board. Cattle market continuing with this relief rally here as prices continue to climb up into our major moving averages. However, this market still remains in bearish territory here as we are trading below this declining 50-day moving average and our 20-day high, which is dating back to the 11th of November at 228.17. Expect to see some resistance step in here as we are getting up here towards this 223 to 225 area. We should start to revisit some of these old pockets of sellers from the last couple of weeks and see those sellers start to get aggressive once again. We want to see this market start to balance out and trade in some tighter ranges before committing to any new downtrend positions. But at the moment, we still expect to see some resistance in this area between our major moving averages. Look for the sellers start to step in and try and turn this market lower here over the next couple of days and into early next week. In the meantime, stay patient here and let this thing start to balance out and create some tighter ranges before committing to any new positions. Big picture downtrend remains intact, and we should see prices try and take another swing lower here over the next week or so. Over to the January feeders. This feeder market has been a little bit more bullish here than those live cattle markets recently. Today we did see this live cattle market jump out and test that 50-day moving average, briefly running up to a high of 334.95. Prices did break out above this prior 20-day high from the 11th of the month at 333.47. Price briefly poking up above that before settling back down here below that 50-day moving average, which is a first sign of life from the bulls here. We need to see this market continue climbing above that 20-day high and get a close back above that 50-day moving average before we start thinking about any potential trend reversals. We still expect to see some resistance here at that 50-day moving average. Price should anywhere here between 330 and 340. There's still plenty of overhead supply, so look for the sellers start to get aggressive here and try and turn this market lower. At the moment, though, looking like the bulls are going to try and turn this thing back around. We should see a little bit of downside here in the near term, but if the bulls are able to keep this thing from going and making new lows, and we do get a higher low put in over the next couple weeks here, could see this thing be setting up for a nice little trend reversal and get that big picture uptrend back on track. At the moment, though, we still have some overhead supply and some resistance that we got to chew through. It's not going to be an easy climb out of here, so I encourage everyone to be patient and let that thing kind of set up a little bit, get a little bit more structure before committing to any more upside. Still expect to see some tests lower here as we are hitting some of these prior resistance levels, so encourage everyone to still remain cautious. There will be a better chance for some upside here at some point, but at the moment, let this market create some more structure and offer some better trading points to go around before we commit to any directional moves. Big picture downtrend still remains intact as long as we're trading below that 50-day moving average, so we still want to encourage everyone to be a little bit cautious if we do get some of these prior day lows to start breaking down, as the bears could try and make another run lower. Over to the corn market now. March corn futures settling back inside that prior day's range, giving back all those gains from yesterday, continuing to see some resistance up there at that 450 mark. This market's still, like we've said for several weeks now, pretty comfortable here between 440 and 450. Expect to see this choppy, rangy action continue here until we can get a good, solid close beyond the edges of this range and see this market start to respect these moving averages a little bit. In the meantime, expect this choppy, sideways action to continue in this corn market. Crude oil prices also continuing to chop up here in the high 50s near the $60 mark. Prices today rallying back up inside that prior day's range, still trading here between our pivot points for the week. Choppy action like we expected here as this market still has very little volatility and very little fuel for some directional moves here. The big picture downtrend still remains intact, but I expect it to be a slow bleed to continue. Look for this market to continue trading around $60 here. If we do continue to follow this downtrend line, we should see a little bit of selling pressure start to come in and see this thing start to sell back down here towards the mid-50s. But in the meantime, this market has just been pretty choppy and sticky here around $60 to $59. Expect this choppy action to continue. If we do start to trade down here below 58.27, we should just see a nice slow bleed lower. Over to the equity markets now. Each of our indexes putting in some constructive work today. S&P rallying briefly above those prior day highs. We have seen about a 4-day range here in between the 68.24 to 68.65. Pretty sloppy range as we've been kind of going back and forth, testing each edge of that range, but good consolidation here. Good signs of life from the bulls as they are starting to show some accumulation here. No follow through day yet here still on the S&P or the Nasdaq. However, we did see a follow through day today on this Dow index, with this market closing up over 1% on increasing volume. This shows that the Dow stock should start rolling higher once again and get this big picture uptrend on track once again. Looks at the moment here, this correction from 48,500 back down here towards just undercutting that $46,000 mark is about all the correction we're going to get here at the moment. With this close today, we should see the Dow index start to continue higher. Nasdaq and the S&P still have a little bit of work to do. We want to see some of these prior highs get closed above here in the Nasdaq and the S&P, but at the moment we are seeing some constructive action. If we are able to get some bullish momentum into tomorrow and see a heavy volume close above 1%, we should see that follow through day kick in and get this uptrend back on track on these other indexes as well. At the moment, looking like this is all the correction we're going to get here in the near term. Look for these prices to continue climbing and start heading back towards those all-time highs. Big picture uptrend still remains intact, and we should see this market continue to climb higher into the end of the year. Thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. We'll catch you guys tomorrow.